Hi, it's Rob from the Brush and Boltgun. Today I'm going to be doing a quick tutorial on how to paint a Hyperphase Reap Blade. So before we've started, we've painted the blade with Citadel Moot Green, and we've washed the grooves in the blade with Citadel Shade Biel-Tan Green. And now we're just going to start with some Vallejo Black, or whichever black that you usually use, Citadel or Army Paint or whichever. As long as it's just a plain black, we're going to start with that. And we're going to paint opposite ends of the blade with the black. So if you're painting the top edge of the blade, you want to paint one end black and leave the other end green. And if you're painting the bottom end, or the bottom edge of the blade, you want to paint the opposite end black to the top part of the blade. Like so. So you do this for each part of the blades, and then once you've done that, we are going to add some Citadel Moot Green just to lighten up that black, and then you're just going to add that between the black and the Moot Green on each of the black sections. So just at the end of that, you're painting a little section with this new colour. And the idea here is we're going to be working it from black all the way through to Moot Green. And then once you've reached Moot Green, which is somewhere in the middle of the blade, we're going to start adding white to the previous mix and lighten that all the way up to white. As you can see here, we've added that mix to the edge of all the black areas. So now we're going to add some more Moot Green to the previous mix. We're just going to start doing a little layer of this at the end of the previous layer. And so what's going to be happening is every time you're adding one of these layers, it's going to be lightening the black until you reach Moot Green somewhere around the middle of the blade. Now I'm going to add some more Moot Green to the previous mix and continue doing this. Ordinarily I'd do these videos with a bit of slow time in them, but it's very, very straightforward in what you're having to do. And you get to see each of the layers at least 4 times in each of the speeded up bits. Now I've left it full length, it's probably going to be about 50 minutes long, but speeding it up doesn't really lose too much of it. You're just putting each layer a little thin segment at the end of the previous layer. So once more, adding Moot Green to this. And this is all we're going to do here, is we're going to keep adding Moot Green to the black mix and just make that lighter and lighter every single time until we reach Moot Green. Now you could probably do this with a bit of wet blending, but I always tend to just do this because it's easier. I'm not going for anything amazing in terms of the blade or the smoothness of it, because these will be used to play the game. So I find this way just an easier method of doing it without having to wet blend or keep the paint wet on the blade because it's rather hot at the minute. Once again, adding more Moot Green to the previous mix. I'm just going to add another little section. You can see here it is lightening towards the centre of the blade. What I tend to find is when you're mixing a colour with the black, it takes a lot more layers to get it to that previous colour than it does when you're mixing white. Once again, we're adding Moot Green to the previous mix. Now we're so very close to just having pure Moot Green. I think that's the next layer. You can see now that it's gone from black to green really well there. Just going to do this on each of the sections of blade that we're working on. See, this guy's got 2 blades, some of them just have the one. And Senor Skorpekh has the one massive blade. Now finally we're going to just be using pure Moot Green and doing a tiny little spot of this in the middle of the blade. Or rather to the end of the areas that we've just been highlighting. It's worth making sure you get the distinction between the top edge and the bottom of the edge of the blade, that little middle circle there. It does set it off and make quite a difference if you just have it one plain colour, because there's a little slight angle halfway down it. So when you paint it, if you do try and get that showing the two different colours, it looks a lot better. So now we've added a little bit of Vallejo White to the Moot Green, and we're just going to highlight the opposite side of the Moot Green to the black. We're just going to go on each of the sections and lighten that up. Then we're going to do exactly the same, just adding white each time to the previous mix and getting that lighter and lighter as it goes along the blade. Adding white once more to the previous mix. I'm just going to highlight this. And when I put the Moot Green in the middle, that is the start of another mix. You're obviously not just adding Moot Green and then white to the Moot Green and black mix. Once you reach that middle section, you're just using Moot Green, and then you're adding white to just pure Moot Green. Then all the steps after that, you're going to be adding just the white to the previous mix, like you were before. Adding more white to the mix, you can see now that you're getting that nice transition from black to green and starting to lighten up. It's a really easy method to do this, just working on it in stages. You can add more stages if you wanted to smooth it out. You can do it less if you want it a bit more chunky. Or if you want to do wet blending, you can probably thin it a little bit and then put the two colours on and mix them together. So you get that nice smooth transition, whichever takes your fancy really, but this is the general idea behind all of it, is that you're getting that transition from dark to the medium colour, then to the lighter colour. Adding more white once again. Just to the edges of the area that you've just done. What you might find sometimes is when you're mixing the colours that you get one and you mix it and it's almost identical to the previous colour. If you do, just add a spot more white to it. Just do it again. It's easy to get a colour pretty much the same as it was. It's also easy to fix that. So now we're adding a bit more white to the previous mix. We're just going to carry on as before, adding this lighter shade to the previous shade, spreading it out along the blade there. So with this layer and the following layer, what you want to do is keep a little bit of the shade that you're using to one side. So when you're adding white for the next layer, you want to keep some of this colour to one side because you will be using it shortly. Adding more white to the previous mix once more. Just going to add a really tiny bit at the end of the blade there, which is just off white. Get that on each section. So I'm thinking of maybe painting up some of the older Necron miniatures in the new Dynasty colours. So if anyone wants to see anything like that, let me know and throw up a video of doing that. You can hear a cat meowing in the background as well. That is one of them come to harass me, as always. Now we're just going to use some pure Vallejo White. All we're going to do is at the very end of the blade, you're going to add a little tiny bit of the white there, just to give that an edge to it. You're also going to start working down all of the edges, around the top edge of the blade, the bottom edge of the blade, around all the details in the middle there that you put the Biel-Tan Green into the recesses. You're just going to drag little thin lines of white around each of the lines on the blade. The reasons for this will become apparent when we start adding the new Citadel paint Tesseract Glow to it. That really does make it stand out. So you just want to make sure you've got quite a nice pure white along each of the edges and each of the ridges, just so that when you apply that glow it stands out compared to the rest of the blade. So you can see how that's turning out there and what I'm trying to do with the white to go around each edge. So if you just continue to do that, I'm going to speed up the next part of the footage because it is quite long. So I'll speed this up so that we can get to the end and get onto the next layer. You can see me adding the white edge into each of the sections. This will help give it that nice glow on each of the angles of the blade. So when you're doing this, you want to do this on both blades, on both sides of each as well. Next up, you can see the blade at the bottom here where I've been playing about with the Tesseract Glow. So we're going to be working on the other blade, but this is the kind of thing that we're going to be working towards. So using the technical paint, Tesseract Glow, you're going to start it in the middle, and that is where you want to have the most of the glow in there. Then you're going to spread it out towards the edges. Now when you are adding this, it does go over the black and give the black a strange kind of glow. If you've ever seen maybe like an infrared Siloom or anything like that, and it has this weird kind of dark glow, hard to describe it, but that's the kind of thing that you get when you're painting this Tesseract Glow over the black ends of the blade. While it's on the lighter colours and you do get that really vivid glow, over the black it's quite dim, but it does look quite good. So you want to be spreading this out towards the end, not quite up to the very end where you've got the almost white and then the white at the far end there. You just want to go around almost to the edge of that, but then make sure you get the Tesseract Glow on all the very white edging that you've put on. The reason for that will show up shortly when we go on to the next layer and we start using those two previous Moot Green and White mixes that we've just saved a little bit of. And it's basically the last two parts of the Moot Green and White mix that we're going to be using. That's just to put a little bit of the colour and the highlight back on the end of the blade once you put the Tesseract Glow all over it. Now you can see just by adding it how much of a glow effect it gives it. I think it's a really cool colour. It means that when you're doing the likes of the Gorse Flare or the Necron's Eyes, you have to do next to nothing to it just to make it look like they have that vivid glow that you see in all the pictures. So I think that's a really well done to Games Workshop and Citadel there. We pulled the blinder with that colour. Like so. So now we've got this, we're going to use the white and Moot Green mix. The last one that you did is, and you're just going to use a tiny little bit of that over the areas where you put it before. You're just going to gently put that on so it kind of blends into the last part where it's the white at the very end. You're just going to sort of gently put that on there on each of the sections. And once you've applied this, you're going to apply the layer prior to that, which was the first one I said to save, and you're just going to put that next to it and gently kind of blend that into the Tesseract Glow next to it, and that will give it that kind of glowing in the middle and then getting up towards the white at the very end. So we're getting the previous mix, we're going to start applying that. It's a slightly darker mix. There you go, and that's blending that quite nicely into the Tesseract Glow there. That means you do have those kind of lighter to whiter bits at the very end of the blade that makes it stand out. And just add a tiny little bit of white to the very tip of the blade, like so. And that is the finished blade. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. Also, think about subscribing to some of our other social media linked below. Thanks very much.